Yes.
I make money from my platform. It's cool, but all right. Welcome to Owning the Masters, a podcast where we discuss business, entrepreneurship, and lifestyle for the culture. I'm your host, Be the Boss. What up, y'all? I have a special guest today. All my guests are special and lit, but this one I came with questions. I got questions today. So I have, when we call you by your full name,
You can. That's fine.
it's Raymond Akil, right?
A shield.
Ashiel.
Yes.
So I was
Yeah.
almost right.
It's close.
Raymond
It's
Ashiel, aka Recovery Ray. You can find him on Instagram.
close. Instagram at recovery.ray.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep. He is a podcast host in Indianapolis, host of Balance Period,
Mm-hmm.
where he discusses racial health equity and generational wellness. So that
Yes.
is like a huge topic for me that I'm super passionate about. That's why I got questions.
Which I'm excited to dive deeper into all of the questions that you have for me today.
Yes.
Yes.
So first thing I want to ask you, how did you even get involved in even wanting to turn this into a platform and career,
Mm-hmm.
this cause?
Yeah, so I would say it kind of started with my educational background. So I went to school. I got a degree in kinesiology.
Okay.
And so I originally wanted to be a physical therapist,
Mhm.
but I was kind of burnt out on school. So I was like, let me just leave here after 4 years and do what I can out
Mhm.
in the world with this degree. So I started a personal training career, and that was my, my attempt to help others improve their quality of life through, in this case, fitness.
Mm-hmm.
But after experiencing my own personal health trauma, I realized that it was a lot more to our overall quality of life than just our physical health. And I started to learn more about our emotional well-being, mental health, and the various different habits that can be practiced in order to keep those domains of our wellness optimized. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what led me to start my podcast back in 2018. I just wanted to share with everyone the journey that I was on, the increased quality of life that I got to experience from the mindset that I adopted and the habits that I practiced, and that has now turned into this self-care company that I run that is centered around wellness
love
and
that.
health equity. So yeah, it started with my my interest in helping others and as it relates to their health, and then through my own personal trauma that has
Mhm.
now turned into better health outcomes for me and the people that I get to serve. So
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so y'all heard what he said. He took something he was passionate about, and his focus wasn't necessarily to make money. His focus was to help others first.
mm-hmm.
And I think that's first, starting with that, I think that's important. I don't want to let that go unnoticed, because a lot of times we okay, I need to make money. I'm going to do this because it fits, but you got to follow what you're passionate about first,
Mm-hmm.
and then everything else will follow. Your platform will follow. The people that you need to serve, they will all come as you operate within your purpose and passion
Most definitely.
first.
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't miss that, y'all. That's a huge thing. I stand on that.
Mm-hmm.
I stand on that. So, what did your journey look like at first? Like when you said you experienced some health traumas.
Mm-hmm.
What did that look like for you? Like starting your own journey.
Yeah. So it was 2017. I had just recently got hired on as a full-time personal trainer in corporate fitness. And I was only 23. Like I really thought I had figured out. I was
Oh,
like,
Lord.
I thought I knew everything. I thought I was invincible. And it was about 2 weeks into the new year that I started to experience some excruciating pain, and that pain ended up being a blood clot in my lung. And so that completely shifted my mindset, because I realized I was close to death. So
Literally.
being face to face with my mortality just required me to start thinking about how I care for myself differently. There were things like, my diet and exercise.
Mm-hmm.
Those are really the only two things. Even, with the kinesiology background,
Yeah.
that was all that was really talked about. We didn't learn about mental health, emotional well-being, none of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So after that experience, I realized I needed to just learn more. I needed to be more curious, and I needed to adopt some habits that were in alignment with me, feeling good and
Feeling
functioning
good.
at my best in those domains of my health. So my journey started out with me recognizing that there was more and just getting curious, educating myself, really Googling it, what can I do to support my mental health? That's how I came across meditation. That was something that I saw time and time again. And it was a little difficult at first because I grew up in the church. Both of my parents were elders in the church.
Ooh, yes.
Anything outside of just giving it to God was like, okay, this is demonic. You don't do
What
yoga.
does that
You don't
even
do
mean?
exactly. And so it was a lot of like push and pull in, the early stages of me beginning to even consider practicing meditation. But I tried it and I experienced significant benefit, and I was just like, this is something that I'm going to keep doing. So I made a commitment to do 10 minutes a day for a year, and that just completely changed everything for me. So that was kind of the initial phases of the journey, and then honestly from there just built upon itself, because the more mindful you become, the more aware you are of what's happening, and I believe we can only take care of what we are aware of. So the
Ooh, I
more
love
that
that.
I became aware of, the better I was able to care for myself, and that just compounds as time progresses.
I love that. I'm kind of learning that now. I'm actually reading a really, really good book right now called, and I've been talking about this book on my Facebook platforms all week, so this conversation is really right on time. But the book is called The Garden Within by Dr. Anita Phillips. So Dr. Anita Phillips, she travels a lot. She's a clinical psychologist. She travels with Sarah Jakes and does all of her tours. But the book, The Garden Within, talks about how closely our bodies are related to creation. So, I mean, even like we're learning more, even if you are, because like you said, we were taught in the church, this is bad, meditation's bad, don't do yoga, it's all demonic, you shouldn't be doing that. And in her research, she's learning like our bodies mimic creation so closely that, when we do these things and become mindful, it starts like your health starts with your heart first. And it's not just your physical heart, it's your emotional heart. So with that, being mindful has a direct correlation into our physical health.
Yep.
So like and it's scientifically proven, but if you're a Christian, it's also biblically proven because it's literally how we're wired. But we're conditioned to think body, mind, heart. Take care of your body first, take care of your mental health, then take care of your heart and emotions. But it's really flipped the other way around, and your body is last. So if your emotional health is not good, your mental health's not going to be good, your body's not going to be healthy, especially as Black people, because we carry trauma in our bodies.
Yeah, from generations and generations and generations ago.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because people don't believe me. I be telling people, like, we literally carry trauma in our DNA. It's not spooky. It's not theoretical. It is literally scientific. And you have to think about how we're wired as humans. We carry our ancestors' DNA. That's why African American DNA and African from Africa people DNA is two totally different strains of DNA, because we have a different type of generational trauma that we carry, and it changes your genetic structure. So everything you do is not necessarily like habit based,
right,
or taught. It's genetic.
Yeah, I would say for anyone listening, a couple concepts that you can just like look up and do some research on: transgenerational trauma, it's a thing, and then epigenetics is another kind of thing that you can start to learn more about, how our past and how our ancestors have impacted who we are today in ways that we might not have even realized is happening. Like it's just the case. And so that's why I think self-awareness is so important. That's why I think, something that I did after the blood clot was I had to do a family health history. So really knowing your family health history, starting with your parents, grandparents, siblings, understanding that is so important, because everyone's a little bit different. So even though our trauma may look similar because of, our ethnicity here, there's going to be some nuances in that as well. And it's going to be up to us individually to know what it is that we need based on where we've been in our family history. So that's why I think it's important to know that, trauma is a thing, but then also know that it takes us to take accountability for how we choose to care for ourselves based on that trauma.
Absolutely, which is where the mindfulness comes in, and we're learning. Like the book Dr. Anita Phillips, where I'm refer back to this again, but she was like, people think breath work is weird. She said it's breathing, their lungs. Like it literally fuels our body, and learning how to control your breath and like being mindful. So explain meditation. So like I said, a lot of people are not familiar with like what meditation actually is.
Yeah, there are several definitions out there. The one that I use is it's the practice of paying attention to the present moment with intention, curiosity, and compassion.
I love that.
That's really it. It's really simple. You're
Mhm.
just being and you're just noticing what's happening. You become the observer of your experience instead of, something in the experience. You kind of do like a bird's eye view. You kind of pull yourself out of it and you just observe what's happening. And man, I think I had never done that prior to doing the mindfulness practice.
Mm.
So it was like really eye-opening to realize that like I am not my thoughts and that I don't have to believe everything I think. I was just so intertwined with what was happening in my mind that it took me having someone, through a guided meditation tell me to just think a little differently about my thoughts to really show me, oh, I can change my relationship with these thoughts that I have, with the behaviors that I have because of these thoughts, right? And it just really showed me the more control that I could have over my experience than prior to me actually doing a mindfulness practice. So long story short, mindfulness is really just pausing and fully engaging with the present moment by just being where you are and just observing what's happening around you and in you.
That goes back to kind of what I was saying before. Like we flip around the body, mind, heart. Being mindfulness allows you to be more proactive. Whereas when it's the other way around, you're more reactive because, like you said, you're living within your experience. But if you understand by being mindful how you operate, by practicing that, because then you constantly, okay, I'm feeling this, what happened to me? So when I experience this thing again, okay, I know when I am around this person or in this situation, my body starts to feel a certain way.
Yep.
So it allows you to kind of be proactive when you encounter things. Would you say that is true?
Most definitely. As I was mentioning before, right, my level of self-awareness expanded from me practicing mindfulness. And so the thing that we all heard as growing up in the church, the Holy Spirit, right, your intuition, we've really been conditioned to not be in tune with that because we're so intertwined with what's happening in our minds. So when we can slow down, we can truly discern things in ourselves. We can discern things about the people that we surround ourselves with, the different, situations that we may be taking ourselves into. But it won't happen if we don't slow down and if we don't like pay closer attention to what's happening. So yeah, I would say by far, mindfulness is going to contribute significantly to us being more proactive instead of reactive. And I would say more responsive instead of reactive to what we experience, because I believe responsiveness is, intention based, but reactiveness is really just like prior conditioning that's leading us to take actions based on what we experience. So
and
it's like more responsive
make bad
than reactive.
decisions when we're in that, because it's very carnal. Place to be. So you're going to go based on what you feel. And a lot of times, what do? We succumb to like comfort measures, whatever that may be. And 9 times out of 10, let's be for real, our comfort measures are usually bad habits.
Yeah, for sure.
Most of the time. I don't really know too many people that have good habits, like when they are feeling anxious.
Yeah, I would say not naturally, because we weren't taught this at home. We weren't taught this at school. We weren't taught this at church. This wasn't modeled for us in any way. So it's like we have to create this for ourselves in order for us to experience the benefit of things like mindfulness or these other habits that we can dive deeper into to help us be, healthier mentally and emotionally. It just wasn't taught to us. So you might be hearing this and thinking, well, no, it's not really healthy for me. And that's fine because you haven't taken the time to cultivate it. Just takes a little time and intention, but trust me, it can happen. If it can happen for me, it can happen for anyone.
Definitely practice, because I'm like learning. I'm kind of new to like meditation and yoga and doing things like that. I've kind of dove into it off and on throughout my life, but really like being consistent with it. I'm really just now getting to that point because I'm realizing how necessary it is. Just really trying to navigate. I'm getting older. I'm 37.
Okay.
So after you turn 30, things don't really work the same way. I get up now and I snap, crackle, pop a little bit sometimes when I get up. I'm like, is it Rice Krispies in my elbow?
Oh,
I didn't have pains in my shoulders like a year ago. What is this? I wake up, I'm like, my neck's stiff today. So things just don't quite work the same. And I'm like, I want to be young forever.
I
So
just
I'm
turned
like,
30 this year, so I'm entering that, that new chapter, that next season, and I'm hoping that the habits I adopted in my 20s carry over to me being able to be more aware, for me to be able to continue to care for myself in a way that does help me feel, more vitality as I age. Because I feel like we can do that. We just haven't had examples of what that looks like, especially in our community. So I'm hoping that I can kind of become that, that example that people can say, oh, this is an option too. Based on your mindset and habits, instead of just all of what we've seen up until this point as it relates to aging.
No, for real. And I was talking to my dad yesterday just about kind of what we were talking about, like generational trauma, but also with some of the diseases that we typically see within our community. I was saying, like, some of the things that we experience, the high blood pressure, the high cholesterol, yes, some of those are attributed to genetics. You're genetically predisposed, but a lot of it is generational habits.
Facts.
So it's the things that we traditionally eat in our diets. Food deserts contribute to a lot of that. A lot of us live in areas where there are no healthy fruits and vegetables. A lot of us were not given fruits and vegetables as children because we don't. Like red Kool-Aid, red dye number 40, like the worst thing you can have. A lot of the things that are considered like staples as far as our diet goes in Black culture are processed, highly sugared, a lot of fat. Like they're not good. So we have generational habits which predispose us to certain things, not necessarily genetics.
Exactly.
So like I think that kind of goes into what you do, like generational wellness.
Exactly.
So how do you pass those messages down to the next generation?
Most definitely. And so, as you were mentioning these habits, that's what I see generational wellness is. It's, healthy habits that are passed down and or exchanged between one generation and another. The beauty of this too is that, this can happen vertically. So it doesn't just have to be because I'm older, I can pass something down. As long as you're teachable, I can pass something up to you as well. So it's something that can, happen in both directions, which I think is pretty cool.
Intergenerational.
Exactly.
Wellness.
Exactly. Yes. And so the process, though, that you go through in order to create it, I try to make it as simple as possible. So I developed a framework for it. There's 3 A's. So it's awareness, accountability, and appreciation. Awareness is you expanding your level of self-awareness. You're assessing your current quality of life. You can do that in various different ways. We can go through, let's just go kind of through a brief list just so that you all have some tools, to expand your awareness of what's happening in your mind and body. So whether, you're journaling or you are doing some diagnostic testing like blood work, something to really understand what's happening in your body, and then journaling, for your mind, really just learning your thoughts and thinking. That helps a lot. Expanding your awareness of how you're spending your time and energy. We all get 24 hours. So if you just do an audit of that, you'll start to see where you're spending time that might not be in alignment with your health and well-being. And then as time progresses, you can, make some adjustments to how you're spending your time. What you're consuming and not just what you eat and drink, even though that's important, but your mental diet as well. So what you watch, what you read, what you listen to, what are these things, and, what are you investing in as it relates to what you consume, and then how you respond to what you experience. So are you kind and compassionate, or are you critical with yourself, with other people,
huge.
right? So really understanding what that looks like. And just doing an audit. So that's the first step. That's awareness. And I think every one of us needs to do that because we're all unique. So it's important for us to know that. Then it's accountability. So accountability is really focused on modeling. So it's what now habits are you integrating into your lifestyle that you are going to model for the people that are in your sphere of influence, right? For your family, for your friends, for your community. Now, what are you going to do? That's when you take what you learn from the awareness piece, and now you're putting in things that are in alignment with you experiencing an increased quality of life.
That's the action.
Exactly. You're getting better quality sleep because you developed an evening routine. You're checking in with yourself throughout the day to know, what you need. You're, practicing things like mindfulness or exercising, eating high quality foods, these things that are in alignment with your health, you're not modeling these behaviors. Now, when the transfer takes place, it comes in appreciation. The word appreciate means to recognize the full worth of something. And in this case, you're recognizing the full worth of your health journey by now sharing your story. Stories are what, for generations after generations has been how we've passed down things.
Yes.
Whether they've been good or bad, it's been through storytelling. And I think one of the things that we haven't done in our community enough is having stories around our health and well-being. We don't talk about mental health. We don't really talk about anything health related. So for us to begin to learn how to tell our stories and to create space in our families to be able to share our stories, that's going to be how we then transfer the lifestyles that we live to generation and, all the generations to come. So that's the process: awareness, accountability, appreciation.
I love that.
I would say what really bridges it together, though, is that storytelling piece.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think the storytelling creates the racial health equity because a lot of us don't like going to the doctor or have had experiences in healthcare that were less than favorable. I know I have as a woman. Black women die at high numbers during childbirth in our country.
Yep.
Which, storytelling and then representation as well is important. That way, you have somebody advocating for you. And if you have one person telling a story, then you have 500 people telling the same story. At some point, you start to see a pattern. And at some point, the powers that be have to see a pattern. So that's why it's important for us to really speak up too.
Yep.
And create that equity.
Yeah. One thing that I want to highlight too is that I think it's important for us to acknowledge the fact that our healthcare system wasn't designed for us to thrive.
At all.
Really anyone, but especially Black and brown folks in this country. So I think if we can acknowledge that and stop waiting for the healthcare system to change, but change our approach to how we interact with the healthcare system, that in and of itself will help us have better health outcomes over time just because we're relating to it differently. We're not waiting on a doctor to come tell us what we need to do, to come prescribe us something. When we go through the process I mentioned before by expanding our awareness, taking accountability for our actions and things like that, we're going to naturally become healthier individuals. And that in and of itself, I believe, will close the racial health gap as time progresses. So I think, just remembering that the system isn't here for us to thrive.
It's not, which is why the representation piece is important as well, because our healthcare is different. I mean, as much as they try to put us all in a bucket and say when we take the skin off, it's the same, but genetically, again, we are not the same.
Exactly.
So our needs are going to be totally different than somebody that doesn't look like us. As much as we don't want to bring race into things, it's important when it comes to our healthcare.
I agree.
So, the representation piece, if you do have to use the healthcare system, we need an advocate, somebody there that understands it, that's on the inside, that's going to be able to advocate for me. So when I was working in healthcare, I worked as a medical assistant.
Okay.
Various different specialties. I worked in primary care, I worked in podiatry, I worked in cardiology, I worked in endocrinology, I worked in urology, I worked for a prostate doctor. So all my patients were men. So I've worked in different areas, but one thing that always held true, my patients love me because I would go in the room and say, if you have a question, ask the question. If you're not comfortable with asking the doctor, ask me and I'll go ask him because he don't scare me. And if you don't agree with something, it's okay to go get a second opinion. This is not the final opinion. I know he has the degree, but this is your body. You know your body better than anybody does. So if you don't feel right about it, go get another opinion. You won't hurt our feelings. It's okay. And just empowering people and letting them know that, okay, I have autonomy in my healthcare. I saw a lot of, especially people, usually it was people that look like us because other people know that they have that autonomy.
Right.
It completely, they're like, oh, I can tell him that. I can ask for what I want. My grandmother even, she's undergoing cancer treatments right now. And I had to tell her, if you don't agree with what the doctor is doing, you don't have to do it. If you don't want to undergo chemo again, tell them no. You are allowed to change your mind too. If at any point you don't want to do this, don't. If there's anything you feel like you need, make sure you speak up. And don't let anybody bully you.
Yeah. I was having a conversation with my mom about that. I have an older sister who's going through various different health traumas over these last few months, and her experience has been absolutely horrid. And so I was like, in thinking about solutions, that's naturally where my mind goes. I was like, it would be so powerful to have culturally competent advocates at each location where we're interacting with this system, so that we know, and it's not someone that is employed by the hospital. It's someone that's coming
like
in,
a third party.
Exactly. And I'm like, how many better outcomes will we have? How much less death will we experience, right? If we just had someone there just to advocate for us.
Surprisingly, though, working in the hospital, they do exist.
That's awesome.
Not within our community, though. And it doesn't look like what you would think it would look like. So a lot of times if you get a Spanish-speaking person or an Asian person, they will have somebody that is familiar with our healthcare system come and translate for them. So they bring family members with them that advocate and understand the system. We just don't do it in our community because I don't think we know we can do that. Said it looks different it doesn't look like that, but that's ultimately what it is.
Yeah. Wow.
You have somebody that just understands, okay, I've lived in this system. I know how to get these resources. I know what to say. I know, and that's what they do for them. But like I said, because we are American and because we live in the community and the circumstances that we've lived in, I don't think we always understand how much power we have.
And I think that's intentional by whoever the powers that be is. It was intentional.
Oh,
to
definitely.
lead us to believe that we have less power than what we do.
Make more money that way.
Exactly.
That's a whole tangent right there.
Whole nother podcast.
Okay. Yeah, that's a whole thing. But definitely, like, I think that like you said, having somebody culturally competent, which is one reason why I worked in healthcare as long as I did. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I hated it. I had bills to pay. But I loved being able to advocate for my patients. But I left when I felt like the system was no longer allowing me to do that. And I'm like, okay, there's nothing I could do. So why am I here? Like I realized, okay, this system is not created for us at all. I attempted to create a program to help people that look like me with a disease that primarily affected us. And I worked for a primarily majority ran organization, and they shot it down. Meanwhile, millions and millions and millions of dollars a year would go to another disease that primarily affected people that did not look like us. But there were no resources to assist a different subset of patients with anything. And I think that it's really important to to understand, like you said, it's not created for us.
Yeah.
And having people that will definitely advocate for that. Let's start it then.
Right.
Contracted.
I would advocate for people.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I do it anyway. I go with my grandparents. Do you go with your sister?
My sister lives in Texas. So she's not here. And she has a Juris Doctorate. So she's aware. She's competent. She's aware.
Yeah.
She's definitely doing her due diligence to make sure she's documenting all of this.
Yeah.
So that she has, the information she needs to take it to who she needs to take it to once her journey with them is done. So
but navigating our healthcare system is not for the weak.
No. It's going to take time, probably some resources, probably some money, because they got some bread that they can throw at things to to move them out of the way. So
definitely.
We'll definitely, I'm excited for her though, and I'm going to be, of course, in her corner, making sure that I'm supporting in any way that I can to make sure that she, experiences some justice for just, it's been horrible.
She's in Texas too?
Yeah, she's in Texas.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So she's doing well now. She has a couple, I think one more surgery planned. So she'll get that done. I think hopefully that'll be the last thing that'll kind of allow her now to start to heal and recover, and then we'll kind of deal with what has been happening these last few months. Yeah.
But the good thing about it is that she has the education she has and the know how to speak up for herself. That's important. Having an advocate is huge.
Yes.
Definitely. We had an issue with her some years ago. I had to go in on some doctors at a local hospital. Because you don't play about my baby, okay? I don't play about my baby. I was about to turn that hospital inside out, okay? But yeah. So I'm referring back to my questions. Let's see. Oh, let's talk about building habits.
Mm-hmm.
Building good habits. So we went to Invest Fest. Shout out to my favorite podcast, Earn Your Leisure. Let's partner. Y'all can partner with us.
I don't see why not.
But yeah, I went to Invest Fest and we got to listen to Robert F. Smith.
Mm-hmm.
In case y'all don't know who Robert F. Smith is, he is the richest black man in America. He's a multi-billionaire. But he said that the greatest key to his success was building habits, building skills and building habits.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk a lot about, like, that's how you started your journey, was building good habits. Like, how did you navigate that process of building good habits, going from like, I need to do this to, okay, I need to do this.
Yeah. I think, some of the key things that I recommend to start is like really starting small. So not overwhelming yourself with all of the things you feel like you need to do. Or trying to do something for a long time. Like for me in mindfulness, right? I found something that was valuable. And I was like, oh, if I do more of this, then I'll probably get more benefit. So that helped because I was already motivated. I already got a taste of it. I tried it. It felt nice. I'm like, I need to do more of this. I wasn't sure how it was going to impact me, but I was like, let's keep it rolling. But I was like, let me commit to 10 minutes a day. That's it. And do that for a year.
That's a long time.
Exactly. So start small and be consistent. If you start small and be consistent, you'll be building discipline each time you do whatever thing that you're doing on a consistent basis. That's really all you need. If you're building a habit, you just have to do it consistently, and you have to stay disciplined enough to stay consistent. You kind of need both in order to see it manifest, but it's really simple. Now, there are other things as it relates to, developing these neural pathways in your brain, to be able to really ingrain this new, feeling, this new habit into your lifestyle. So things like getting good sleep, things like non-sleep deep rest protocols to where you're able to experience deep rest during the day to help consolidate some of that information that you're learning. That's also helpful. So there's other little nuances.
How do you do that?
Yeah. It depends on how much time you have and if you can take a nap or not. If you can take a nap, that'll be a fantastic way to, literally experience that deep rest during the day. If you can't, it could be something like a yoga nidra, which is a form of yoga that is just essentially progressive relaxation. So you kind of just go from your head to your toes and you just intentionally relax all your muscles and you just like be. That puts you in a state of deep rest. There's also called non-sleep deep rest protocols that you can do. These can be from 5, 10, 20 minutes to where you're not asleep, but you're creating the conditions to experience deep rest. That is important for, memory consolidation and honestly just our mental health in general.
That's how you lock them in.
Yeah, that contributes to you locking in what it is that you're doing. So that helps. I didn't know any of that when I got started. So that's why what I started with was do something in a small increment, do it consistently over time. That's what worked for me. As I have continued to evolve and learn and grow, I learned about neuroplasticity and all these other things and realized that there was ways to enhance that experience. But it's really as simple as just doing something consistently.
That's a struggle.
It can be.
It's a struggle.
But that's why you got to set the bar low and
determine
determine what's going to work best for you to keep yourself accountable.
Ooh, I like that.
Because it could be another person. You have an accountability partner. There's apps out there or websites where you can literally stake money. You can say, if I don't do this, I have to pay this amount of money to, you can do it to a cause that you don't really care for, something like that, right? So find what is motivating you or something that will keep you accountable. And that's what you need to employ or implement into your daily life so that you can stay consistent with whatever that's small thing is.
3 A's. I see where you're going.
Yeah.
That's huge. Like, accountability is everything. Because I know a lot of us, I know I struggle. I can be accountable to other people, but when it comes to being accountable to myself, that's a different beast of things to have to do. And
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's not necessarily easy,
Mm-hmm.
but it can be done.
Yeah.
It can be done. And I think it's important to be able to give yourself grace, to remember that you don't have to be perfect to be great. Those are some of the things I remind myself on a consistent basis, because you're not necessarily going to always be consistent or always stay disciplined. But for a lot of us, when we make it to that point to where we might slip up, we just kind of, we say in the church, backslide. You kind of just go all the way
You
back.
go back to
into-
the bad habits.
all
Like,
the way back.
I done already ate one Cheeto. I might as well go give me a double cheeseburger at this point.
Exactly. So I think, understanding that grace is needed.
Yeah.
And another thing, and I learned this from, being a personal trainer. When you exercise, and let's say you want to change your body composition, you want to maybe, have a flatter stomach, or for guys, build your biceps or chest or something like that. You can work out for, let's say, a month, and you might not see any physical changes, but you'll experience some strength gains, but you won't see any physical changes. And I think for us, we are in a microwave society where we want our results now. And I think before you start this journey, to understand and accept the fact that it's going to take time, and you might not see the results that you will get early on. That's okay. You just have to keep going. Another analogy I use is like planting a seed. You plant a seed, nothing has broke ground yet, but there are roots that are forming. That's what you taking consistent action, cultivating discipline. That's what you're doing. You're really just getting the roots deep, so that when you do sprout up, you're able to withstand anything that happens.
Yeah.
Exactly, because you have built that foundation. So I think accepting the fact that you might not see some of the tangible results from the efforts that you put in, it's just a part of the journey. But if you're able to remember why you're doing it and stay consistent, it's only a matter of time before you do start to see the manifestation of what it is that you're looking to do.
I think that kind of goes back to, like I was saying before, kind of with the heart, mind, body analogy. So like if you cultivate that mindfulness, that self-awareness, it leads to self-love, which leads to self-care. Then it makes it easier to be accountable and build the habits. That's kind of what I think I hear you saying.
And it's funny because in addition to generational wellness and that model, we developed an emotional literacy program called the Balance Blueprint. And each letter of the word balance stands for competency, and there's a focus. The first three are belief, which is we focus on self-efficacy, awareness, and we focus on self-acceptance, and then love. We focus on self-compassion and love.
I love that.
The fourth step is then self-care, because we realize after you cultivate that, the inner work, the mindset around why it's important to care for yourself, and understand that you demonstrate the love that you have for yourself by practicing self-care. Now you're ready to start embracing some of these new behaviors. But what comes right after self-care is no, and is boundaries. What boundaries are you setting in order to honor these self-care activities that you have identified are important for you? And then after no, what's next? Consistency. You have to do it over and over again. You have to be consistent and stay disciplined. And then finally, we talk about the E is enjoy, and it's for gratitude. So how are you integrating gratitude into your journey? Because even though you might not get those results that you ultimately want, you can be grateful for where you are right now. And gratitude makes what we have enough. So when you're integrating gratitude into your daily life, regardless of where you are along that journey, you're still able to enjoy yourself. You're still able to experience the vitality that comes with you investing in your health and wellness. So
I battled depression through gratitude.
Interesting.
So some years ago, I went through like a major depressive whole era. It was maybe like 5 years.
Wow.
I suffer with major depression. And this was like right at the start of like YouTube, and I don't think podcasts were a thing yet. It was probably maybe like, it's like 2013-ish, 2012, 2013. And I heard somebody say, where gratitude lives, depression dies. And I was like, So I really got to like studying that, and it's really true. If you're grateful, you can't be depressed.
Right.
Like if I'm grateful, if I'm depressed and I wake up today, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be thankful for something. It gives me something to look forward to, because I think I heard somebody say like depression is when we lament the past,
Mm.
and anxiety is fear of the future. So if I'm present, which gratefulness requires you to be present,
Yep.
because you have to evaluate what you have going on in your life now to find something to be grateful for. You don't have time to think about the past,
Exactly.
and you don't really have time to be worried about the future either because you're present.
Yep.
And I think like that's a huge mental health thing. 'Cause like you said, we live in a microwave society, and then we were talking about earlier with my daughter, like the society we live in requires feedback,
Mm-hmm.
constant feedback, constant validation, constant satisfaction. Like we look for everything so fast, and we look for everything outside of ourselves.
Yep.
As opposed to going within, which is really necessary to navigate the society we live in. Like I don't know anybody, if we all live like that all the time, like we would be like zombies. We
Yeah.
would be all crazy. And I think we're kind of learning that in our generation now
Mm-hmm.
with our quality of life. And like we have the luxury in our generation of actually living as opposed to surviving. And I think that's the difference between us and our parents and the generations ahead. I feel like millennials and early Gen Zers, we are the first generation that actually gets to experience life
Mm-hmm.
since before we got on the boat.
Yeah.
And I don't think we give ourselves enough credit for that. Like everything, all the trauma we've experienced, and now our generation, we're learning about healing,
Mm-hmm.
mental health, just overall holistic wellness. We have the luxury of learning those things because our parents and grandparents didn't. They was just trying to make it through the day. I got to
Yeah.
feed these kids. I got to survive the white man at this job, and I'm going to go home and I'm going to at least try to have a little something. And that's it. That's how they lived their life. But now we're like, okay, hold on. It's a whole world out here that we have access to because they didn't know that there was a whole world.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I think that that's huge with like our generation now really learning about how to navigate this new world that we've been a part of. I don't know, since the internet age, and definitely since COVID. So you started your business before COVID.
Yes, but
So how did it affect you?
Yeah, so how my business looks today isn't what it looked like before COVID. So before COVID, I mean, I had quit my personal training job and started the business as a personal training business. I was going into people's homes, taking them through exercises. I wanted to like be like a concierge personal trainer. And that didn't really go that great. Honestly, I wasn't the greatest entrepreneur. I really wasn't teachable. So I wasn't accepting of new information and trying new things. And that led me to kind of need additional sources of income in order to, make it, in order to survive.
No, for real, yeah.
And so I was kind of had my business on the back burner. And so I really wasn't investing as much time and energy into it. And so when the pandemic hit, everything was shut down. I was laid off. So I was getting, them checks that they were sending every week. And I'm like, this is kind of nice, one. And it was like, two, I knew that where I was working wouldn't create the conditions for me to get paid like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a minute. Now is the time to rethink the business and see if I can dive in and make something new happen. And so that's what I did. And that's what then led me to creating the Balanced Blueprint and then embark on this journey of, leveraging this content in order to help other people, which has now, led to what I do today. So, yeah, it shifted it, I think, for the better. Yeah.
Definitely. You had a captive audience. And it was so neat. Timing is literally everything. That's a testament to timing is everything. Because I don't think if COVID never happened, your business wouldn't look the way it looks, because I feel like the need would be different.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have had the sense of urgency to do it.
Yeah.
I think that rocked me because I had a stable job at that time. And I was just like, wait a minute. Like, no, I'm not getting any younger. Like, now is the time for me to really see what I can do and build this business. I started a business because I realized that I wasn't going to be able to have the upward mobility that I thought I was going to have in the corporate space. And I wanted something different for me and my family as it related to our financial life. I just wanted something different. And I thought entrepreneurship would be able to give me that. And so I was like, it would be a disservice for me and my family if I didn't go
Didn't
out here and
pursue
try.
it.
Yeah, if I
Yeah.
didn't invest my energy into seeing what can happen with this
Sometimes you
information.
just gotta throw it out there and see what sticks.
Yeah,
And that's just it. Like
that's true.
even with us starting this podcast, so I'm podcasting again now, but we started our podcast in 2021. Valentine's Day of 2021, and it was me and my sister. Shout out to LJ, my baby. But it was us, and that's kind of like how we started, like throwing something out there and seeing if it sticks. Just because we have conversations like this, my sister and I, she's my best friend, but she's my sister. But we have like deep, meaningful conversations all the time, literally. And we were like, you know what?
Where do
This
you record
podcasting
these?
is the thing. We need to just go ahead and sit down somewhere. This is good. Like we'll be sitting there like, this is a good conversation. We need to start recording these. And that's just kind of how it started. That's kind of how it started. And we was just like, let's just throw this out here and see what sticks. And we got some good traction, but we ended up having to come to an abrupt halt just because life happens. We got kids, we're moms. My sister has small children.
Gotcha.
A lot of them. So she has a lot on her plate. So, and so do I. And we're like, we just need to put this on the back burner for right now. And then the opportunity arose now. And I'm like, you know what? We should start the podcast back up again.
That's awesome.
So though she's not here, like physically, because she decided that, you know, being behind the camera, she don't want to do it all the time. But she's definitely the creative director, and she's like my other half behind the scenes.
That's awesome.
but like literally, that's how it started. Just us right after COVID, throwing something out just to see what sticks. Because we got to try it. We got kids. It's not about us. It's about having the conversations, and the conversations that we have, our kids can use it. Like
100%.
Yeah, it's just like parenting, but 2.0.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what continued to motivate me to do my podcast. It's been over, I think the one that posted today was probably like my 230 something episode, right? In the beginning, I wasn't even thinking about making money or anything from it.
Yeah.
But when I realized the impact that what I was sharing was having on just random people that would listen, I was just like, my great grandson can listen to this.
Yes.
You know, like this can be what transforms how my family for years to come thinks about how they care for themselves and what they choose to do to invest in their wellness. That's what motivated me, was realizing that this is probably like, unless something crazy happens and we don't have internet anymore, you know, something crazy happens, this is going to be here.
It's going to be here.
And people will be able to tap into this. My family will be able to tap into this for
Forever and
generations.
ever, amen.
Exactly. So that honestly, that's something that motivated me to keep going and to keep producing and keep sharing stories because I think they're important.
Very important.
Yeah.
That's why that's why I'm looking forward to having Murdoch on.
Oh, yeah.
So we all about stories. That's why we podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Really, like literally, it's to tell the story. Stories are important. Everybody's story is important, even if you think it's an ugly story. Because I know I struggle with that for a long time, like just not wanting to share my story. But I'm doing such a disservice to the people that I've been given stewardship over by the Most High in my life if I keep my story to myself. Because I know, like, growing up, we were taught, you know, what happens here stays here. Stay in the child's place. This grown folks' business. Like, that's what we were taught. And it's things that our parents experienced and our grandparents experienced that they didn't share with us. So we ended up having to create generational mistakes because we didn't have the luxury of learning from anybody because their pride meant more than sharing the story.
Yeah, and the shame that came with it. I think that's something that's so common in our, community. There's a lot of shame in these stories. And I think when we're able to become more emotionally literate, we can process emotions like shame, and we can understand the impact that those stories can have in the midst of experiencing shame, and understanding that feeling will only be there for 30, 90 seconds max. It doesn't stay around that long. But instead of us shying away from these emotions, we're able to lean into them so that we can still share the value
Yeah.
that is our story.
And I think the shame decreases when you hear more stories like yours.
Most definitely.
Because if, like we were talking about earlier, if I hear one story versus when I hear 500 of the same story, okay, this is a systemic thing. This isn't just a my house thing. Okay, so that happened to you too? Hold on, that happened to you and them? Okay, I'm not by myself. So then where it allows people to have the space to be more vulnerable.
Yep.
And that, like, ultimately, especially in our community, that's what we need, because we can't make a change and our voices don't matter if they're small. A collective voice means a lot more than 2 or 3 people trying to fight for a cause. It's like, how, no, they're not going to take us seriously.
Right.
But if we all are telling the same story, it matters. And that representation matters. And not just representation, again, it's freedom.
It is.
It's freedom. I don't want to hold back and carry that. Then it becomes trauma in your body because you're carrying it in your body, and then it becomes generational trauma, and you passing it down to your kids, all when you could have just let it out if you had a proper outlet.
Yeah, I heard, I was listening to some podcast, and someone on there was talking about transgenerational trauma, and they said that we can't heal what we don't feel. And I was like, that's true, right? For generation after generation, we've been putting these things away. We've been dismissing them instead of feeling them because we've been afraid to feel them.
Yep.
And I think it's our responsibility for those of us listening that are, understanding of our ability to process these things for I can process something today from my ancestors.
In real life.
And it's like,
and you can free.
Yes.
I might free Harriet Tubman at this point.
Who knows, right? I don't
For
know.
real. I can free Nat Turner.
Came from, but yeah.
In real life. Like, I done freed them because I broke free from my emotional chains and the systemic chains. Like, I'm freeing Kunta Kinte.
Toby. No, it was Kunta Kinte.
For real. I'm a stud. Like, what you mean? We freed them all. We are doing that. We have the power to do that in our generation, literally, with social media and information being so open. We have access to literally everything. So why not use the platform? It's like a spider web. Like, we can all connect with each other rather than using it for conversations that are not productive.
Yeah. There's a lot.
There's a lot of those. Yeah. There's a lot of those. Like, I love to see, like, more positive, productive conversations, because productive conversation is not always a positive one.
No.
Usually the most productive conversations are very much the opposite, because they're the necessary conversations, and those are the ones that hurt.
Yeah, they're not very comfortable.
No.
But they're fruitful.
Fruitful.
It's kind of like putting fertilizer on something that you want to grow. It don't smell very nice, but it helps it grow a lot better by putting the fertilizer on there.
Yeah.
So
we got to get dirty. We got to get down and dirty and have these conversations in order to break the chains. Because I don't want my kids, I've been very intentional with my children. I don't want them to carry my burdens. And sometimes, like, as a parent, for sure, we get caught up in the day-to-day living. And then I'm snapping on my kid and I have a bad attitude, or I'm teaching my kid to be anxious, because anxiety, unfortunately, is generational for me. So I watched my grandmother, really my great-grandmother, live with perfectionism that she instilled in my grandmother, that she instilled in my mother, that she ultimately instilled in me.
Yep.
And I'm like, look, I can't live with this pressure. It's a lot of pressure that I just don't want. And when I realized, like, I'm carrying this, I had to look at my family like, okay, this perfectionism is really anxiety. What are we anxious about? We're anxious about performing, because as Black women and Black people especially, we feel like if we're not doing something, we're not valuable. But I'm like, hold on. You said I'm a Black woman? Hold on. I'm valuable just because I am.
Yep.
I don't need to do anything or song and dance in order to be valuable. And I'm also raising 3 daughters. So I instill that in them. I don't feel the need to be perfect. So I admit, like, look, I'm not that mom that's gonna color with you. I don't know how to bake. We won't ever be baking cookies. Like I'm not. I know my capabilities as a parent, and that's what I'm gonna operate in.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can't do it, look, I'm sorry, you don't have that mother, but your grandmother's good at that. So I'm gonna send you over there. If that's what you need, you can get that from there. But I just refuse to put that pressure on myself. And I think it breaks the chains for my daughters from having to be everything for everybody all the time.
Yeah.
And I think like that's a part of generational wellness is in the habit. Like that's where that self-awareness comes from. I had to be aware enough of myself to tell my daughters, like, look, I'm not gonna be everything all the time. Today I don't feel like going to your concert. So I'm gonna drop you off in the 2 hours that you there. I'll see you when it's over. But the next one, I'll be there. But today I just don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna show up when I can. It's 3 of them. So, just showing up where I can and not showing up when I don't want to. And being okay to voice that to everybody around me and setting the boundary.
Yep.
And I think we need to learn how to do that, like, especially as Black people, because we're taught that if we're not doing, we're lazy.
Yep.
Meanwhile, we built this country on our back. So how do people that built the whole country, how are we lazy?
Right.
Laziness ain't even in us.
No, it's not. Yeah, and I think from what you were describing, the connection between our productivity and our self-worth has been just so ingrained.
Oh my God.
And that's why, I say, and I mentioned it earlier in the episode, I don't have to be perfect to be great. That's something that I remind myself, something that I say at the end of all of my podcast episodes and the end of any speech that I give. I remind everyone, like, you're enough as you are in this moment. Take a deep breath and realize that right now you have everything you need to experience peace and joy. You don't have to do anything else.
Nope.
Regardless of what you got done, regardless of what's left undone, you're enough, right? And it's just important for us to know that because it's true.
It is.
It's true.
My 6-year-old learned in her first grade class, her teacher teaches them practice makes progress.
I like that.
Not practice makes perfect. Practice makes progress. And she says, Mommy, if I can't get it the first time, I'll just keep trying. And I have to keep telling her, like, you don't have to be good at everything. If you get a C, like I've always been like this with my girls, if you come home with a C and that's the best you could do, I'm good with the C because I know that you put the work in. Even as adults, we're not going to be good at everything.
Right.
And why would we want to be good at everything? When we have community, if we build community, there's no need to be good at everything because I know somebody that can do X, Y, Z. I mean, let's just talk the podcast. Like, I know I can't do what Chris does. That's why I have Chris. Because, I mean, though I have the equipment, I have the mics, I have the lights, I have the cameras, I bought all the stuff, and I look at all of it like I got thousands of dollars worth of equipment. I don't want to use none of this. I'm just going to go ahead and let somebody else do it so I can operate in my strengths. If we learn how to outsource everything and delegate, we can operate within our strengths as opposed to trying to create that feeling of perfection that we have to do everything and gatekeeping.
Yeah. And when we outsource, we make sure that it's to people that look like us. That then helps with the generational wealth side too.
Boom.
Yeah.
Keep it in the community.
Yes. We have so much money that circulates in our community and we just give it right back
to the people that we complain about. Hold on.
It's reckless.
Crazy.
But it happens every day. And so I think when we start to understand that, I think when Murdoch's here, you all have a fruitful conversation about this, but I heard him say, like, if we treat us like we're all that we have, like the new grocery store that opened, right? Indie Fresh Market. If we treated that like that's the only grocery store that we can shop at, you know how wildly successful the grocery store would be?
Right. I'm trying to get them on the show too.
That'd be dope. That'd be dope. So it's just like, but that's a mindset shift because we're conditioned to be consumers, and a lot of what we consume doesn't come from companies that their owners or the people that have equity in that company that look like us. Yeah. So I think it's important for us just to be aware of that.
Yes, and I think that if they weren't, I completely agree. But on the flip side of that, I'm talking to us right now. We have a conversation. Okay, so everybody that don't look like this, y'all can go ahead and come out the room for a second. I'm gonna talk directly to my people. Okay, do good business. I think that a lot of the issue that we have is the scarcity mindset. Like you said, if we treat our businesses like that's all that exists, there wouldn't be so few of them, and we could patronize us more, and we wouldn't have this scarcity mindset with business owners. Oh, I'm the only Black business, so I'm going to gouge everybody that I'm going to gouge everybody because I know that I'm one in a million. And I know that the same service that these people over here are charging $20 for and still making good money, I'm going to charge $100 just because I can. And creating community to learn how to do good business and be teachable.
Yep.
Be teachable. We have to stop thinking that we have to do it all. Again, it goes back to outsourcing. I have a business, but I'm not a good entrepreneur and pouring back into my community if I'm not hiring people that look like me, teaching other people that look like me how to do business and things that I have learned. Like, I'm not doing a good job if I'm keeping it all to myself. We have to have good community. There are enough of us for all of us to be successful together collectively, but it's enough cake out here realistically for everybody to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we just do not know how to utilize community the way that we should.
Yeah. I think it's because we've been conditioned to hate ourselves and each other. That's why.
Absolutely.
That's why our communities look the way that they do.
Mm-hmm.
There's less unity in our communities.
Yep.
So once we're able to really decide that we want to change things and then come together, but the beautiful part about this is that progress is already being made. There's communities all around the city. I get to travel and I go to other cities and I'm hearing about what others are doing, and it's like, it's here. We just have to just tap into what's being offered. We just have to go and see what we can do to contribute to our community beginning to look different, and start at home.
I was just about to say
start at home.
Full circle.
Yes. Start at home, and then naturally, right?
It's gonna radiate.
Exactly.
It's gonna be. You're gonna want to spread the love and expand that.
Yes.
We just have to learn the self-love piece first, because we have been conditioned to believe that we are not worthy, that we are not enough, we are lazy, we are ugly, everything we do is wrong. We have been conditioned to believe that, and none of it is true. Because the devil is a liar. He's going to lie. You have to believe first within yourself that you are enough. And then you don't feel the need to gatekeep.
Right.
Because that's where you're placing your validation. And if you are looking out, if you're looking within yourself, you know that I'm valid.
Yep.
Period. I don't need you to validate me. And yeah, because I not struggle with that. Even with doing this podcast, a lot of imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Like, what do I have to say? Is my story valid? Like, am I enough? And I'm like, no, but you know the truth though. And like, I think we all have to like go within first, which is what you were talking about. And he gave y'all like tangible ways to do that. Like action steps.
Yeah. And one of the things I would say, audit, because there's been science to connect your use of social media to your lower quality of mental health and to promote this comparison trap that we end up keeping ourselves in. Audit how much time you're spending on social media. In most cases, you can go on your phone and you can see exactly how much time you spend on each app. So look at how much time you spend and think about the intention that you have when you're on there. Are you just scrolling? Are you on there, trying to improve yourself? In most cases, right, regardless, we're going to be scrolling if we're on there for a lot. And so just know that will have a direct correlation to your mental health, to how you view yourself, to your self-esteem, to your confidence. All of these things are impacted by how much time you're spending on social media. So I would say start there. Audit that. Of course, integrate things like mindfulness into your routine, but audit what you're consuming and the consistency of that, because that does have an impact on your quality of your mental health.
No, for real. If it triggers your immune system, turn it off. No, seriously. Like if it puts you in fight or flight, because I know I have been like, if I'm in a certain space, there's certain people I can't follow. There's certain things I can't look. And it might be people I actually like or love. But if it puts me in fight or flight, because social media you start to get that feeling in your chest. Your stomach starts to feel funny. Your head will feel light when you start to look at certain content or certain things that are triggering. That's the trigger response, what we call triggering, is ultimately your fight or flight.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's what you feeling, turn it off. Unfollow. I muted 90% of my Instagram following yesterday. If you did not have anything positive or motivating to say, or if you just put me in a space, like if I know you and I see your content and you just automatically trigger my immune system, I am muting you. I don't have to unfollow you. I might turn you back on once I'm in a different space.
Right.
But today, I can't handle it.
Yeah.
And like even like my Facebook feed, I cultivated my feed such that everything is positive. I don't see a lot of them red pill conversations that they see that we have circulating on social media because I don't entertain it. I don't comment on it. I don't entertain it. And I either unfollow, delete, or mute it. So you have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to consume it. You don't
Nope.
have to partake in the conversation. And this goes back to a conversation I actually was having with my sister yesterday. She posted something that this girl said. It was with, what podcast was it? I can't even think about it, but it was a relationship-based podcast. And the girl was saying that a lot of y'all struggle in your relationships because you on social media so much that you are taking on other people's things. Like, for example, and I know this is probably an unpopular opinion, but I'm going to say it anyway. So the red pill community, you know the red pill community, everybody knows what that is. A lot of the conversation is, okay, women / all men should do this for me. Like, this is the thing. I want a man that makes 6 figures. I want a man that does X, Y, Z. I'm going to talk to the ladies first. But in reality, that will never even be your situation because you don't even live around people that live that lifestyle. You just are regurgitating something that you heard. All women are gold diggers. Sir, you've never made over $25,000 ever in your life and you're 38. So to say all women want you for your money, you've never had any money, sir. Like, it's like we are living out somebody else's experiences. We just regurgitate somebody else's experience rather than paying attention to what you have going on in your own surroundings and being content with that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you really have to be careful. There's such a fine line where you start to internalize everybody else's experiences to the point where you can't discern what's your thought and what's somebody else's thought. I think in psychology it's groupthink.
Yeah.
The groupthink phenomenon.
Yep.
Where I think that's our entire society.
Mm-hmm.
We have probably, I won't say 8 billion people, but probably at least 5 billion people living that groupthink phenomenon right now because we have access to everybody else's mind. And it's very weird. It's like Twilight Zone. No, really. Like, I never would have thought that we would be here and like have access to everybody else's life, everybody else's thoughts. Like people express their thoughts with their thumbs in 2 seconds.
Yeah. And they spend, a lot less time processing. Yeah, exactly. Processing it. They're just reacting to something else that they saw.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like we're really like living from the outside in. Yes. And
it's dangerous.
It's not sustainable for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we'll continue to see the things that it has been building. We'll see them crumble. It's only a matter of time before the structures that the people are investing into, it won't be able to stand.
Yeah.
And individually, I think they will experience something. And I'm not wishing anything ill on anyone, but in most cases, you'll experience something that will bring you back to reality. Like, hey,
God, yes,
this isn't going to work anymore.
And I feel like we're getting to that point. But the good thing, so that's the negative side. But on the flip side, I also see like a community building, like the initiatives that you have and other things. Like I think that there is this awareness. So as much chaos as we have going on at the top, underneath those roots, I see like there's a whole community starting to come together that is so thirsty for this healing and so thirsty for like positivity that people are kind of cultivating that. So underneath all the chaos that's going on, like slowly but surely creeping in, it's like you see the wound like sealing up.
Yep.
And I love that for us.
I do too.
And I think social media, that's the other flip side to the coin. Though the community is very small still, I think that that's the movement that's arising. The danger is when it becomes trendy and not authentic. So there's going to be some people that try to capitalize. Ooh, healing. I'm going to make it look like I'm healed because I know all these people are so thirsty to feel something because we haven't felt anything for years. And people are so thirsty for authenticity. Like, there's going to be people that try to capitalize on that. But I think that there are a lot more people that are genuine about it and platforms because people are tired. Like, we just did a whole pandemic. We got inflation. I was talking to my daughter earlier. Like, I have the same bills that I had 15 years ago. The stack of bills is the same. I make double what I made when I started working in this field 15 years ago. Yet, I have to choose sometimes what bills I'm paying because things cost so much more.
Yep.
Like my rent, when I first got my first apartment, was $425 a month. No, really, like $425 a month. The same 1-bedroom apartment that I lived in back in 2006 is $1,300 a month now. Same apartment. Astronomical. So it's like, it's like something at some point has got to give. And like, I think that we are slowly starting to see that coming up under the surface, bubbling.
Yeah.
And when it finally when it finally blows up, I'm excited to see where our community goes with our kids, creating that generational wellness and passing these things down to our kids. She taught me about yoga. It's my daughter. Like you said, it can go up or down.
Yep.
I knew nothing about yoga. She was watching YouTube when she was like 13. And I went in her room one day and she was like, she said, "Mommy, come do yoga with me." I'm like, "What? Yoga?" She said, "No, come do yoga with me." And she works out. She was super consistent. Meditation. She taught me about meditation.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So like, we definitely can learn from each other.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think that that's great. So now, like, she passed something to me that I can pass on to her 6-year-old sister, but she'll pass it on to my grandkids. And it's like, we don't have to live in that bondage anymore because, like, even with my 6-year-old, she's the most self-aware human being at 6 I've ever met. I'm like, okay, the world is changing.
It is. It is.
Yeah. She'll tell us, like, I don't respect, she's not respecting my boundaries, Mommy. I didn't want to talk to her anymore because she disrespected my boundaries and I had to remove myself. And I'm like, you know what? I love that for you.
Right. I didn't even know what a boundary was until I was probably about 26, 27.
No,
so
for real.
love the fact that she's 6.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, you know what? I love the life that you're going to have. It's just like, I'm me. She said, I love myself. I'm a beautiful and magical Black woman and we are amazing. I'm like, yes, you are. Tell everybody. Like, look, like I said, that's the fruits of everything that you're doing. It's like you look and you're gonna be like, my kid just said what? I love it that you're so self-assured. Because I didn't have that.
Right.
We had to learn that as at our big ages. We had to learn. We had to undo things before we could build it back up. So I think that it's amazing that we're doing the work. Do the work, y'all. It hurts at first.
Yeah. Things always get worse before they get better. So like when you start doing the work, you're not just going to start feeling great. Like you're bringing things up that odds are you haven't paid attention to in a long time. So like it's not going to be comfortable, but just keep going. That's only going to be temporary. So just keep going. And trust me, things will get better. Even though they get worse first, they will get better. And you'll start to reap the benefit of investing in your wellness. Similar to, putting money into an account that you're looking to grow, over time, compound interest becomes a thing and you're starting to get exponential growth in the money that you invest. The same is, the case for your wellness. It's going to take time, but compounding interest is a thing and you'll start to experience that as long as you're consistent and disciplined.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think we can drop the mic on that one.
There we go.
So tell us where to find you.
Yes. So you can go to my website, balanceperiod.com, or you can just go straight to our social media platforms. We're on Instagram at, both words spelled out, balance period. And we're also on TikTok at balance period pod. We do have a podcast that comes out. It's essentially a weekly podcast. Sometimes if I'm traveling, I might skip a week, but normally on Sundays we drop, and everything in there is focused on wellness and health equity. So, if you want to come, you want to do a breathing practice, we do one of those to start every episode. Tune in and engage with us on any platform that you see us.
I love that. Yes. So we will see y'all next week.
Peace.